Welcome to another edition of State of Affairs. Serbian American Voters Alliance, in partnership with Serbian Radio Chicago, is bringing to you the newest interviews with candidates and political leaders. We are having conversations that matter. And today I am joined by Joe Collins, who is a candidate out of California. He is running in the 43rd Congressional District and trying to unseat Representative Maxine Waters. Joe, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
So we would love for our voters to get to know you. You are a veteran, and of course, thank you for your service. You are running against Maxine Waters, who is a veteran Democrat. She's been in office since 1991, if I am not mistaken. And while we're talking, I am going to share your ad walking through your congressional district. From what I understand, Maxine Waters does not live in the district that she represents.
Yeah, she does. And she has a really nice house on the other side of town around the corner from the mayor in a upper suburbia neighborhood called Hancock Park.
Interesting. So talk to me about your platform, because it says you want to be that voice for the people. And it seems that specific communities have not had that voice. What is it that you are planning on doing? What difference are you expecting to make? Because certainly, even looking at your ad, there are a lot of problems. You grew up in South Central LA, you know the area well. What can we do to change that, especially having these veteran Democrats sitting in these areas and nothing has changed for these communities?
Yeah, I think, one of the biggest things that I want to do is I want to rebuild the district. My platform is providing financial literacy, bringing quality jobs back, improving our education system, improving the relationship between the law enforcement and our communities, and doing something about this homeless problem. The way we start is by making sure that we get the people who've been in office for a very long time, who have proven time and time again they're not going to do anything for our community, out of office. I want to get young people involved in politics, actively involved in politics, start being the solution to the problems that we have. But definitely rebuilding our community is absolutely number one.
And a big part of your platform is education, and we see what's happening with our education, not just in California, of course, but around the country. There's a big debate on introducing critical race theory to our schools. What are your thoughts on this persistent narrative that America is inherently and systematically racist? As a man of color, how do we address this, and how do we go through this bipartisanship, I guess, that has become so polarized?
I think one of the biggest things we need to focus on, especially when it comes to education, is things that are going to help our young people be successful. I don't know what critical race theory is. I've heard it plenty of times, but it doesn't resonate with anything that is a career out in the real world. I think we got to move past these social issues and stop making social issues the forefront of American politics and American values. We got to get vocational training back in school. We got to get school choice in place so parents can decide where they want to send their schools to give their children the best opportunity to be successful. We also have to start teaching financial literacy in school, teaching basic economics. I think if you want to teach about race in America, or you want to teach about the real history of America, you use the Library of Congress. You don't use ideologies or opinions to be able to teach our kids. I don't think that's right at all.
And going back to the relationship that you've mentioned between communities of color and law enforcement, we saw what happened last year, especially 2020 was such a difficult year. We saw what happened in Minneapolis. And speaking of Maxine Waters, do you feel that she was somebody who was inciting violence? Because connecting back to January 6th, and President Trump was accused of inciting violence, did Maxine Waters do the same or even worse?
I think what Maxine Waters did is worse. I think it's irreproachable. The reason why is because she said if the judicial system doesn't do its job and convict Derek Chauvin, which in my opinion I always knew it would, then people need to stand in the streets and get confrontational. That's a stark difference from what President Trump said. President Trump said we need to march down to Capitol Hill peacefully and let our voices be heard. He didn't say anything about being aggressive or confrontational or destroying anything. So I can't like accurately label what President Trump did as something that was bad or something that was wrong. But when it comes to Maxine Waters, to tell people to be confrontational, knowing that this is something that she says on a regular basis, I absolutely do think that she was trying to incite violence.
So how do we bridge that gap? We see the attacks on the law enforcement, and we've seen what came out of the Black Lives Matter movement and Antifa. How do we bridge that gap with the law enforcement and especially the minority communities?
Well, I think one of the biggest things that we have to do and should have been done a long time ago is police reform, right? Police reform is absolutely necessary. The reason why I say that is because we're in 2021. There hasn't been a major police reform bill since like the 1940s and the 1950s. And so we have to understand that the way things are then and the way things are now are completely different. Even when you look at the 94 crime bill, like even those set of standards don't apply anymore. And so police reform is absolutely necessary. On top of police reform, I mean, we got to get mental health training for our officers so they can be able to identify, victims or suspects who may have some type of mental health issue. And we got to stop pushing this racist theory. Everything is not racist. Everything can't be racist. If something happens to a Black person by another person, whether that person be white or Hispanic or Asian, it's not race related. There's just lack of training and awareness on the police officer's fault or something that the suspect or the victim did to cause that type of reaction from that officer.
Understood. Now, there was a leak out of the State Department, and now we see that the embassies around the world, the U.S. embassies around the world, have been flying the Black Lives Matter flags. Is that something that you feel is, in fact, helping bring us back together, bring us back to that common denominator? Is it helping the polarization in the country that is so virulent right now?
No, I think it's making the country more polarized. Black Lives Matter flag, the LGBTQ flag, none of those flags should be flown because it's not a flag of a state and it's not a flag of a nation. So those flags shouldn't be flown anywhere except for someone's house if they feel that strongly about organization or movement. But, if we can take that aspect of the flag being flown, and we can say it's discrimination, because I'm pretty sure there are other organizations who have flags that they want to be flown as well. So if you're going to fly Black Lives Matter flag, then you're going to have to fly everybody's flag. So for me, it's like an all or none. In my opinion, I only think state flags or nation flags should be flown.
I want to address something that I've picked up today on your social media, and you've received a little bit of flack from some of your followers, but you say that you are not somebody who follows that cult-like ideology, which is great. You are a free thinker, free speaker, and the polarization even that's happening within the GOP, you're calling for unity of the Republican Party, and you're ultimately saying that people should stop calling each other rhinos. It seems that the Democrats are fairly united. They have a united front, but there is a big divide right now within the Republican Party. How do you address that? And people weren't too happy with it.
Yeah, people are not happy. So the Republican Party is supposed to be the party of free thinkers, but right now we're moving into an age where you're free to think just like everybody else instead of being a legitimate free thinker. And I don't want to subscribe to any cult-like behaviors. I don't want to subscribe to any ideologies or opinions outside of my own. I think that we should have the freedom to pick and choose what we want to believe and what we don't want to believe. We should be able to pick and choose what we like and what we don't like without the influence of others, without being ridiculed, without anybody saying anything about what you have to say. I think perspective and opinion are absolutely important, and it's something that should be respected regardless if I like it or not. I should be able to not agree with you and still respect your opinion and be able to move on amicably. So I absolutely meant what I said. Right now we have people who have they want to be a part of a cult-like following. It's like, oh, you're going to support President Trump and nobody who President Trump hates. But at the end of the day, I've been inside and I know what's going on. You see people who in the media shows President Trump doesn't like this person or this person doesn't like President Trump, or they have a disagreement and then everybody hates that person. But when we go to these fundraisers, when we go to these different dinners and functions, everybody's in the same room. But the media doesn't see that. The people don't see that. They just want to have their own opinion, their own ideology. I hate this person because he said something bad. I hate this person because he didn't like President Trump, or he didn't like something that this person says. And at the end of the day, it should be okay for this person to have a disagreement and everybody still be able to respect him regardless of his disagreements. So I'm not going to subscribe to any cult-like ideologies or behaviors. I really don't want to do it. I want to be free to like and dislike what I want to, support and not support who I want to, and do whatever it is that I feel like I want to do.
But so even the mainstream media and everything that we hear around us, and what we see, everybody is at fault of raising these issues of high emotional content. But in fact, the voters are not informed of what really are the major issues. So for you, for your district, and as I said, you're running against a very tough opponent, a veteran of the Democratic Party. What are the chances? What is the field looking like in your district? And how do you remove somebody like that who's been the poster child of these communities and the Democratic Party for so long?
Well, last election we ran in 2020, we did a really good job. We were able to increase the registered Republican voters by 50,000. And we took our district from a D plus 54 to a D plus 24, which means it's moving towards not being heavily Democratic. And that was because we spoke directly to issues that the people cared about. We wasn't pushing Republican or conservative ideologies or talking points or opinions on people. If people feel like jobs are an issue, great, let's talk about how we can bring more jobs. If people feel like education is an issue, great, let's figure out how we can bring more education. If people feel like gang violence or domestic violence is a huge issue, then yes, let's figure out a way to be able to solve those issues. And so, being able to connect with people on a regular basis about issues that are important to them is how we were able to be so successful last time, even though we did win the election. But it's gonna be the reason why we're gonna be successful in 2022.
Excellent. And final question, just regarding the state of California in general. I am here in Florida, and just looking at what happened with COVID-19 and how Governor Newsom has handled California and just overall issues, not just related to COVID, but related to everything else. And then we have DeSantis over here on the other side. What are your thoughts just generally on how things are being handled in California overall, and what kind of a path do you see forward?
I think Governor Newsom did a terrible job when it came to the pandemic and how he handled it. He took a lot of freedoms and liberties away. He made sure a lot of businesses were going to be shut down permanently. Ron DeSantis did a really good job. He looked at the information. He looked at the data, and he looked at what the people wanted to do, which at the end of the day was the most important thing. If you're afraid of a virus, then you should stay home. But people should have the freedom to be free. This is America. So I applaud the efforts that Governor DeSantis put forth out in Florida. And I hope that the rest of the United States can take note and move forward amicably.
Excellent. And one thing that is very important for some of the ethnic communities, such as Serbian community, you've served overseas, you understand what foreign policy looks like, you understand what it means to be in a war. And we live in a very dangerous time in our country. It's something that none of us expected. Very polarized, as we said, but just in general, your views on foreign policy, and a lot of the Democrats have been driving that kind of hawkish narrative. President Trump brought a different perspective to it. What are your thoughts just in general, quickly, on foreign policy, and how would you address specific issues?
When it comes to foreign policy, being someone who served in the military for 13 and a half years, I think aggressive leadership is needed. Aggressive, but in a manner that is diplomatic. When you have weak leadership like what we have right now, it gives other countries the boldness to attack other countries and go to war. And that's the last thing that we need. So when it comes to foreign policy, I think that a strong, aggressive leadership is necessary, especially for the United States, one of the superpowers of the world, a country that a lot of people look up to, a country that a lot of people fear but respect at the same time. And we have to maintain that strong, aggressive leadership if we want to remain in superpowers and mitigate the amount of wars that we could potentially be in the future.
Excellent. And anything else we might have missed that you'd like our voters and listeners to know about you?
Yes, my website, joecollinsforcongress.com. Please go there and support our campaign.
And we're going to put all of that information below our interview. We're going to share it, and we're going to make sure that our voters know about your campaign and they rally behind you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Bye.
Bye.